Hi guys! I'm sitting right in front of my books. That's the shelf with my favorite books of all times. I just yeah, it's unceremonically just pushed in there because I live in a very small apartment and I don't have room for nice uh bookcases and stuff like that. I want to have a library one day, but for now this is what it looks like, which is fine. We're gonna do a review or just talk about, maybe more that, just talk about the books I read this year. Um, I had a goal this year to read 23 books because it's 2023. I know, I'm so genius. No, the reason why I chose 23 books is because in 2022, yes, those are numbers. Yes. In 2022, I read, I think, 22 books, and that was on accident. I didn't mean to read 2020. Bleh. I didn't mean to read 22 books in 2022. Why is this so hard for me? Whatever. But it just happened, and I was like, okay, let's just add one more book as a goal for 2023 because 22 books was already a lot for me. Since I have two jobs, I am still studying, I live on my own, I have to do everything myself. So I was like, okay, for someone who's extremely busy, 22 books in a year is pretty good. I also don't read very thin books. I have the habit of reading chunks, big chunky boys. I like that. So I was quite proud of myself. Like, wow, this is the most books I've ever read in a year in my entire life. So, oh my God, do you see my coffee go? Let me sip and put it down before it's on my pants. Kitty cat, what are you doing? Can you go? I love you, but you're annoying. So, 23 books in 2023. Let me tell you one thing. I did not read 23 books. I read 41 and I'm still reading. I'm still finished. Are you a bunny or what? Oh God. I'm still reading this book. I'm halfway. There's still 3 days left in this year, and I think I can finish this much. So Rachel Cusk's second place will also be in this year in 2023. So that would mean that I finished 42 books this year, which is crazy. That's double, almost double what I read last year. And I thought when I set my goal in January, 23 books is a realistic goal. That is a good goal. I doubled that. Like, I'm astonished by how much I read. I am shocked by the amount of books I read in a year. Like I said, I love reading, but I never read this much. And also the things that I read, I'm quite proud about it. So I'm gonna get my trusty little iPad here. I use Storygraph and I use Goodreads, but I like Storygraph for the statistics, and I like Goodreads for people's reviews on the book or their opinions about the book. I love to read all the stars. I like to hear when people gave 5 stars. I want to know why they gave the book 5 stars. When someone gave like 1 star, I want to know their opinion too. Like, why did you give 1 star? That's why I use Goodreads. But on Storygraph, I like a lot for my statistics because I'm a statistic girl. So, look at that. Look at that. Ah! I'm so proud of myself. I'm sorry. I read 178% of my goal. That's almost 200%. I am just a couple of books away of that. I would have read 46 books to meet 200% of my goal. I am I have exceeded my goal by 18 books. I like those statistics. I like those statistics. The mood range is mostly like reflective, emotional, and dark. Sad is also still quite a chunk out of the nice cheese, of emotions. I do see that. I did read quite a lot of classics, and I feel like I really discovered Gothic literature. Like, I read Wuthering Heights, I read Carmilla, which is a book about vampires, a classic one, lesbian vampires. Also, that was a 5-star. It was good. And I don't really read fast books, apparently. The Orange is Fast. Only 18% of the books that I read this year were fast reading books. All the rest were quite slow. Whoopsies. And I do have the habit to read books of about 500 plus pages. Whoopsies. I do read quite a chunk of nonfiction. 30% of what I read this year was nonfiction, which I'm quite proud of. I do like nonfiction. But if you look at the genres, okay, whatever. That's not a word I can pronounce. I mostly read literature. 18 books were literary books. And 9 were classics. I do like myself literary classics. I do like English classics. I love Russian classics. I discovered last year when I read The Master and Margareta. I'm a big fan of Russian literature, so it doesn't shock me that I read that much. But I did read a lot more modern books too this year, like Tomorrow, and The 8 Moons of... what's his name? Yeah, that one book. Those were books that you see everywhere in bookstores. And when I was younger, I used to look at those books and be like, no, I'm not gonna read that because everybody's reading that. That was my attitude. I would always do that. I would always rebel against everything that everybody was doing. I was like, no, everybody's doing that. I'm gonna do the opposite. Thank you. So that's kind of how I love reading less known books or classics, because I did not want to be reading the books that just came out. I still kind of have that habit of, I first want to know if that book won prizes, if friends of mine read that book, if people that on like other booktubers read that book and recommend it, and I know that I like their reading style, so okay, then I'm gonna give it a try. Like, that's kind of my attitude towards newer books. But this year, when a book came out and I was mildly enthusiastic about it, I'm like, okay, yeah, I could read that. That story sounds nice. I actually bought the book and read it. So I did that for a couple, like Tomorrow. I read like that, and I'm quite proud of myself that I did that, because they were not bad books. They were not 5 stars for me. No, The 8 Moons of... yeah. Why did I forget his name? He's from Sri Lanka, but I forgot the name. Anyway, he will be my list. That book was a 5-star for me, and I did not expect that. I went in with not too many expectations, and I was blown away. So I'm very happy that I did read that I did make the decision to buy the book that the bookstores here were full of, and you couldn't not see this book when you went into a bookstore. It was just everywhere, and I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm buying it. But I'm happy I did that. So I have 5 authors that I read multiple books of this year. One is Ellen Edgar Poe. I did fall into, like, around Halloween, I decided to read Edgar Allan Poe because it was just laying around here, and they were good, but they're short stories, so I read a couple of the short stories, so I have multiple here it says, but whatever. Then I discovered her last year, Miko Kawakami. I don't remember which book I read last year, but I remember that this year I read Breasts and Eggs, and she blew me away with the first part of that book. Like, the first half of that book was just a 5-star read. Like, if I could give 6 stars, I would have gave it 6 stars. But then that last part of it, I didn't connect with that last part so much as I did with the first part. The first part with the little niece that came around to visit and her diary entries, those were things that I used to think as a young teenage girl too, when my period started and everything. So I really connected with that part of the book. So Miko Kawakami with Breasts and Eggs really blew me away. So I decided to buy more of her books and read more of her books. And honestly, I do enjoy her writing. It's something completely different. I also read the book about bullies. That book, essentially, it could be a boring book, but it wasn't. It had me in a chokehold the entire time, and I don't know how, because it sounds boring when you have to explain her books. It really does, but they're not boring at all. Then I also have oh god, I know it's a Chinese name, and I did study Chinese, but I know I'm gonna butcher his name. I'm so sorry. Cixin Liu. I don't know. It doesn't say it in Pinji, so I don't know. Yeah, whatever. Cixin Liu. I from the Three Body trilogy. I started the Three Body trilogy last year, but I read the other 2 books in the series. It's 4 books, no? Is it 3 or 4 books? Oh, no, I don't remember. Anyway, I still have 1 book to finish of that series, and I am so stoked to do it, but I'm gonna leave it for next year. I like to spread my series a little bit. I don't want to end it. I also heard people say really good things about the last book, and I'm just dreading it. I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. I'm not ready to separate with it because this is science fiction, and I usually don't read science fiction. The only other science fiction book I ever read is Dune, and the first 100 pages of that book were misery, and I tried to go on because like, I'm giving sci-fi a chance here, but Cixin Liu saved science fiction for me this year. He really did. So I read 2 books of him. Then I also read the 2 Donna Tartt books. Last year I read The Secret History, and I gave that 5 stars because that was a really, really, really good book. But then I read The Little Friend and The Goldfinch. The Little Friend, I hate that book. I hate it. I just hate it. I have a review on Goodreads about that book. You can read it if you want to. You can look it up. But yeah, I hate it. And then The Goldfinch, it started so well. It had me, I was like, oh my god. And then it went nowhere. And I got frustrated. So I skimmed through the pages and I decided to put it down. So I didn't actually finish it. Neither did I do with The Little Friend. So I did not actually read those books. No, these are thick books. These are books of 600, 700 pages. And I read half of them. So I read like 300 pages of each of those books, which is a book in its own. But Donna Tartt decided to continue writing. And to be honest, I think both books could have been 300 pages, but she decided that 700 pages was the number, and no. Another writer that I read a lot of books of this year was, it's a bit embarrassing, it's Mo Xiang Tong Xu. Again, I'm not sure. I could have just butchered that completely because I don't have the Chinese characters. I just have the English. I'm just guessing, but I'm not good with Chinese names. So, um, but he's the writer of a manga that I'm following. So yeah, it's it's a really good manga. You could check it out. I love these. That is some good stuff. As you can see, I had a reading slump in September, which was a very busy month for me. And I started at the beginning of the year good, and then it went a little bit down in March. But then in May and June, I read a lot again, and in August, I read a lot too. Over the warm summer months, I read quite a lot. I also think when the sun is out, I have the habit of sitting outside on my balcony and just reading. While if it's cold, I'm inside, I'm sitting in my couch and I'm sitting in front of my TV. So I kind of have the habit of putting the TV on and then not reading a book. So it's quite normal for me to have a slump in those months. Overall, I gave quite good ratings. I don't have 1-star books. I do have 2-star books, 4 of them actually, which was The Goldfinch. I gave it 2 stars. That's actually not too bad. Also, The Little Friend, 2 stars. I do think there's something in those books. There is something in there. But no. I also gave Luster 2 stars. I did not resonate with that book, and I don't like the writing style. I'm very sorry. But 2 stars is still not that bad. I know I'm quite critical sometimes. For me to give a 5-star to a book, I mean, I only gave 4 books 5 stars, so. And then I have a couple of 4.75 and 4.5s and 4.25s because I'm quite quite punctual on that. But I mostly gave 4 stars, which is good. Let's go into my 5-star, shall we? 5-star books was Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin, which is chef's kiss. I reread The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, which is my favorite book of all time. I reread it. This book and The Master and Margarita. But I read The Master and Margarita last year in November, December. So I just read it. So I was not yet going to read it again. But I might read it again next year because I love that book. But the same with The Picture of Dorian Gray. And I wanted to say if I can find it, I will show it because I actually painted in the book this time. I don't only annotate in my favorite books, but I also paint in my favorite books. But I kind of want to show you the book if I can find it. Oh, here it is. I'm gonna show you The Master and Margarita too after this because I painted in this one too. But this is my copy of The Picture of Dorian Gray, and first of all, I have an explanation here. It's called the Pygmalion Effect. And I kind of feel like this book represents the Pygmalion Effect. I could be wrong, but to me, this is kind of what it is. It's like you have your own expectations and beliefs, but when someone influences it and makes those beliefs stronger, for with Dorian, he's like, I'm handsome. And then someone else is like, oh my God, but you are so handsome. It gets stronger. You believe it more and more. It has an impact on you and on your beliefs. And it just gets more and more reinforced and you just feel better and better about yourself. That's kind of what happens in this book. So I have the Pygmalion Effect in you. I don't know if I explained that correctly, but whatever. I also write down the themes of the book and some examples of where to find it. And then I did paintings. Yeah, because the novel starts in Lord Henry's garden, and the way Oscar Wilde describes this garden, I wish I was there. I can smell the flowers. I can feel the warm summer breeze. I can hear the movement of the light curtains blowing in the wind with the windows. I, I wish I was there. I wish I was there. But I decided to do kind of that stuff in there. Overall, it is a heavily annotated book. I love I have hearts. These are little hearts. I have them all over the place. And I love to see how in the beginning of the book, everything, all the colors and everything are so vibrant and nice. And then when you go more down the book, it's getting cooler tones, because we also see Dorian just becoming this cold shell of what he used to be. I love that too, about how I did this. And this is 100% a beautiful book. My favorite classic ever, together with The Master and Margareta, which I also made drawings in. It's the cat. I got quite some drawings in here, actually. I have a witch on a broom somewhere in here. I have the man who became invisible. It's the part of the story where the devil turns a man invisible. This is a crazy story. It's just an absolutely crazy story. It's batshit crazy. It's the cat on the metro because he escaped. Here we have a witch on a broomstick, like an actual broom. Yeah. Oh, it's the dead maid. It's her. With the flies coming off of her. Hela, that's her name, Hela. It's Hela, the dead maid. Yeah, again, this is a heavily annotated book. I had so much to annotate sometimes that I had to paste in multiple. These are 2 post-its. I had to paste in multiple post-its because I didn't have enough space to write in the margins. Yeah, I just love this book. My absolute favorite. Anyway, I didn't read it this year. I read it last year, and I'm talking about it again. No, don't do that. That's bad. Another 5-star read was also a reread that I read 3 years ago, which is The Tao of Pooh. And I've seen some very, what's the word I'm looking for? There's people who really like this book and there's people who really don't like this book, and that's fine, that's okay. I understand this is Taoism, and some people are saying like, oh yeah, the writer tried to explain Taoism with Winnie the Pooh, and some people were against that, and some people were like, why? I love Winnie the Pooh. I love it. I absolutely adore Winnie the Pooh my entire life. So seeing Taoism explained by Winnie the Pooh to me was just perfection. So I'm not complaining. I learned a lot of simple things out of that book. There's one part in the book about, can I get it? Where is it? Oh, I don't see it. But there's a part about people who are always busy. They always need to be busy, and they can't sit still. And I felt like only then I realized, oh, this is me. Like when I have a free day, I will still have to do something, and that's not nice. I need to relax, and I realized that I cannot relax, and that is actually a problem. It's a problem, yeah. I always have to go somewhere. I always have to do something. There's always a task to be done, even on days where I don't have anything to do. There's still that need to do. It's really toxic, and I am learning to let go, which Winnie the Pooh has learned me. Winnie the Pooh did. Well, Benjamin Hoff did, the writer, but... And then my fourth 5-star book was Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Reiner or Rainer? Maria Rilke. I know it's Rilke. I know that is correct because the man is German, I believe, if I'm not wrong. I might be wrong, but his last name is pronounced Rilke. I love him. I love him, and for 2024, I have a goal. I want to read more of his books because, oh my god, I have a little notebook where it's a commonplace book, and I filled up so many pages with quotes from this book. I need to read more Rilke because I'm so in love with him. I love, love, love him. All right, then. Oh, here we are. I gave The Seven Moons of Mali Almeida. That was it. I gave it 4.75 stars. I don't remember why I didn't give it 5. I wish I knew, but I don't. And then I also read a nonfiction book, Trauma, the Invisible Epidemic, and how trauma works and how we can heal from it, by Paul Conti, which was an eye-opening book. There's so much in there. As a nurse, I got a lot of out of it to use on patients, to think about when I'm treating patients with trauma, old or new trauma, to think about when I speak with them or when I interact with them. Like, this might be how they react, and that is okay, but I have to react correctly as a nurse on their reaction. Like, I have to do the right response there. Response, that's what I needed. Wrong word. But I also learned a lot of things about my own trauma and how to deal with it. So it was a very good book. Then 4.5 stars, I have The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. Absolutely stunning. I don't know why I didn't give it 5 stars. No, it's because I wanted it to be longer. It was too short. I wanted it to be longer. It should have been at least a 100-page book, but it's only 31 pages. It's so short, and I was so sad. I'm like, why is it this short? It's so good. That's why. It's not a good reason. That's a me problem. That's not Edgar's problem, that his book was too good, that I wanted more. It's a 5-star read. That's what it means. And then The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa. Ogawa? Yeah, Ogawa. Which was just cute. It was just cute overall. I read it over the summer and it was adorable. It was really, really adorable. It was just a nice read. I don't know what else to say. 4.25 stars. We have Breasts and Eggs. There it is. Like I said, first part. Last part, didn't say that much. Then I read some Siri Hustvedt, but I read her essays called Mothers, Fathers, and Others. And again, I had a lot of annotations in there, and I also wrote quite a lot of quotes in my commonplace book. I discovered Siri Hustvedt this year too, and I will be reading more Siri Hustvedt next year because I really like the way this woman thinks and her opinions. I really like those. So I'm very pleased to have discovered her. I just picked up this book because I liked the cover of this book. This one. I liked the cover. I was like, that looks interesting. I had never heard of Siri Hustvedt, and now I'm like, thank God the cover looked like this and that I picked it up. Otherwise, I would have never known. So I'm very pleased to have learned about her. And then I also read quite some, I read 2 books by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I read Braiding Sweetgrass. But I also, first I read the one about moss. Gathering Moss. I read Gathering Moss first, and then I read Braiding Sweetgrass. I loved both of those books, and there's a lot of things that I got out of there, and I have new appreciation for so many things on our planet, and I want to see if she has more books, actually, because I really enjoyed her. Then my 4 stars, which 4 stars are almost equal to 5 stars in my opinion. These books should have been 5 stars, but I gave them 4 stars for some very minor, stupid reason. So keep in mind, 4 stars are actually 5 stars in my world. We have Pachinko, which I read the book and I watched the Apple TV series at the same time because the Apple TV series is like based from the book, but the order of the Apple TV series was different than the book. I still enjoyed watching and reading at the same time, actually, because the characters really came to life for me. Um, I loved it. Pachinko, everybody should read this book. I loved it. I don't know why I gave it 4 stars. It was really good. It's a thick book. It's like 500 pages, but it's so good. I started annotating, but then I stopped because this is more like a slice of life, and there's not really life lessons that I can get out of that as a white person that still lives in the country where I was born in. I did spend some time overseas. I did live in Asia for a little bit, but I mean, it's not the same as the Koreans having to move to Japan for the war and stuff like that. I don't know how that feels, and I like reading this. I also liked, a couple of years ago, I read a book about Chinese immigrants like that. It's something with swans. I'm now reading like Red Sister, Big Sister, and oh, I forgot. Yeah, I will talk about it when I finish that book, probably. So we will come back on that later in a later video later on in the year. Um, but I like the stories about immigrants and how they have to move their entire family and change their lives. Because this to me is a concept that I don't know. I have the privilege of not knowing that. And personally, I find these kind of stories, they rip me apart. And I have so much respect for immigrants for doing this because, oh my God, life must be so tough to just do that. Like, I I mean, I could, but I'm so happy I don't have to. If I have to, sure, I would, but no, thank you. I'm quite pleased here where I live and how I'm doing. I have so much privilege. So, yeah, I see that when I read books like this, and I feel so powerless to everything that's happening in the world, and I can't do much. And yeah, these books make me feel a lot of things. Then I read Period Power, and wow, I have a lot of annotations about that one because I learned a lot about my hormones and my period. I don't think that in Belgium, at least, or in Europe, we learn enough about the reproductive system, the female reproductive system. Jesus Christ, I can't talk. That's not new. I could never talk. Anyway, I did not know certain things. And as a nurse, I find that shocking because we did learn about this, but not in this extent. And I wish I did because as a woman, it's my body, they're my hormones. I should know. So I actually changed my diet up to fit with my hormonal cycle. So during certain parts of my cycle, I will eat different things. But if you want to know more about it, you should read the book Period Power because she explains it so well. I could never explain it like that. I learned so much, and my body, I feel so much happier in my body right now. I learned to listen to my body more. I learned which signals my body gives and what I have to do when it gives that signal. All things I did not know, and sad. I'm very sad that I did not know those things. Then I read The Body Keeps the Score, which is again a book about trauma. I read quite some books about trauma this year. I don't know why. This one was also good, but I liked the other one more. I mean, I gave it more stars, so obviously. This is a good book too. Bessel van Kolk, he's a Dutch doctor. He gave a lot of scientific things, a lot of MRI scans and like scans of the brain, just explaining certain things like, oh yeah, people with trauma compared to people not with trauma responding to something under the brain scan. I enjoy that. I'm a nurse. I enjoyed stuff like that. But The other book that I read also explained these things, but without all the MRI scans, and it's not necessary to know these things. Sometimes it kind of annoyed me how much of that scientific things he threw at me, because I'm like, trauma is about science. This is what his book is all about. He wants to explain to doctors, like, look, there is science behind psychology. Our brain shows it. This is the science. While this is important, for me, it is less important, because I know that, but I don't necessarily need to know the science behind it to know how to treat people. I want to know what I can do for people to help them deal with their trauma, heal from their trauma. And I don't need MRI scans for that, because we're not going to put every traumatized person under an MRI scan to see what the fuck their brain is doing. We're not going to do that. So it feels less important to me. That's why I gave the other book more stars than this one. Still loved it though. But if I need to recommend a book about trauma, I would not recommend this one. I would recommend the other one. I read Young Mungo over the summer. Again, one of those books that are more commercialized, a lot more famous. Not famous. They're more commercialized, and they were everywhere in bookstores this year, over the summer, and I liked it. I'm happy I picked it up. It was a good book. It was a really good book. Not my usual read, but a good book. We also have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow in this list, also 4-star. It was good. It was good. I don't have much more to say about it, but I enjoyed it, so it doesn't matter. And then I have Carmela by oh, that's a French name, but Sheridan Le Fanu. Le Fanu. I know Le Fanu, but I don't know the Sheridan part. Read a book. Read it. That's all I will say. What is it? 4 stars? Again, it's something in my head. I read Dracula a couple years ago and I hated it. Why? Because it's a vampire book. And when I hear vampire book, I think of gruesome scenes with lots of blood and blah, blah. Which, no. Classic vampire books never have that. I also want to say that Carmilla is older than Dracula. So Carmilla was written before Dracula, which to me was mind-blowing. I'm like, wow. Also, Carmilla is a lot more lesbian because it's essentially a story about, well, a little vampire that falls in love with another girl. So it's like, it's more about the lesbianness for me than about the vampire, this book. But then Dracula also has nothing to do with vampires for almost the entirety of the book. It's mostly about this relationship between this guy and this girl. I think in my generation, we expect a lot from vampire stories, and these old school classics don't give us that. So it's something in my head. It's a in my head, and I can't change it. Every time I read something about vampires, I have expectations and they are never met. Which, yeah, it's normal. These are the authentic vampire stories. And they disappoint me, which is sad. Because these are the authentics. This is how vampirism happened. This is the birth of it. And it bores me. I hate that. But there's not much about to do. Except for Carmilla. Carmilla did not bore me because, like I said, a lot of lesbian stuff. That had me hooked, not the vampire stuff. And I don't know if the other books are very mentionable. I read The Yellow Wallpaper, which was good. Oh, Heaven by Miko Kawakami. That was the book I read first, Heaven. That's the one about bullying, I think. Yeah, I read Demon Copperhead recently. It was okay. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was good. I also read Almond. Was good. I listened to the audiobook Wilds by Cheryl Strayed. Decent, pretty good. Nice. Anything else? A Tale for a Time Being by Ruth Ozeki, which was good too, but again, I wanted more. I wanted to go somewhere with it, and it kind of just stopped at a certain point, and I was left with this empty feeling like, oh, that's it. It's quite a chunky boy too, and to be left with that feeling, not too nice. I reread The Alchemist and I hated it. I don't know why I reread it. Choices we make. I used to, when I read it, like, oh my god, 5 years ago, I gave it 4 or 5 stars, and now I'm like, this is not it. I hate it. Oh yeah, I also read the third book in the Sea of Fertility series by Yukio Mishima. I read Temple of Down. I did not like it that much. It was okay, but I didn't like it too much. I loved the first book in that series. I really like Yukio Mishima, and a couple of years ago I started reading him, like 4 or 3 years ago. I started reading Yukio Mishima, and I told myself, okay, I want to read more of this writer, and I did, and then I kind of burned out on it, and I was like, okay, we're gonna step back from Yukio Mishima. But now I feel for 2024, I do think I want to read more of his books. I want to finish the last book in this series, the Sea of Fertility series. I want to finish it. Gonna read the last book in the beginning of the year, on the new year, and then I want to read his other books too. So I will be reading a little bit more of that. I read I Want to Die, but I Want to Eat Tteokbokki, which is a conversation with a therapist. It was okay. Some parts were recognizable, but yeah, it was decent. And then I also read Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, which was where the Gothic literature comes in, which I love. The Fall of Usher House is also in here. And then we're gonna go down to my books that I did not like. I read Weather by Jenny Offill. I don't think I will be reading any Jenny Offill again. I don't like her writing style too much. It was a decent book. The how do I say it? The form of writing was interesting. I did decide to listen to it, to the audiobook, and it was very much a conversation with someone with ADHD. That was what it felt like. I finished reading The Power of Habit because I started it in 2021. Whoopsies. It wasn't that good. Then I read Never in Anger, a Portrait of an Eskimo Family by Joan Briggs, which is an anthropology book. It had good parts in it and it had lesser good parts in it. It's an anthropology book, so like I can't really give these kind of books stars. I do want to read more anthropology books again. I used to read a lot more of them, but I kind of stopped. So I'm gonna try to read more anthropology books again. And then we're done. That's all of them. Yay. That's all of the books I read. Nice. I'm gonna can I show? Can I show? Is there a nice way to show here? No, we're gonna go to Goodreads. Goodreads makes this really nice template, I think, for these kind. There we go. Can I see all of them? Oh no, they don't do that like this. Right? Thought I did. No, they don't. Okay, well, whatever. It is what it is. Okay. Maybe it was on here. No, it's not. No, okay, but whatever. I think 41 books in very much different genres, different kinds of books. I'm quite proud of myself for this. For next year, Ooh, I do want to read more. I have a lot of reading plans. I have a lot of things on my list that I want to read. I also joined a book club, a local book club. So yeah, there's a lot of new things coming for me, new things to try, new genres to try, and oh, I don't know. How many books should I read next year? Oh, I don't know. Should I say 42? I don't know if I can read 40 books next year. Like, I would love to. But I feel like I can't. It's too much. I do have some big books that I'm gonna finish in that year. I'm reading The Idiot and War and Peace right now. I've been reading War and Peace for 3 years. I need to finish that book desperately. So I think I want to do that in 2024. And The Idiot, I don't want The Idiot to lay around as long as War and Peace did. But it's only half the pages. The Idiot is 720 pages and War and Peace is 1,384. So yeah, I do want to finish those this year because I'm so sad that book is just those books are just laying around here. But yeah, this is all I read this year. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you liked me rambling on about the books I read this year, and I will be seeing you in 2024.